Mr. Punching.
Let me pour? Ask me to say pour. Pour. Thank you. Good looking at me. Guess that's just differentially reinforcing what we want to hold out so we get what we want. That's it. Get some kind of history. That's why I can be the bad guy. Wow. Yeah. Hey, buddy. Oh, thank you for looking at me. You are beautiful just looking at me. Have some juice. See, I'm just directly reinforcing what just been looking at me. It doesn't have to have a man looking at you. Juice. Oh, I have your juice on. See, I literally looked. I held it when you looked at me. Big splash fish. Yay. Wow. Four.
Big fans too.
Thanks.
He's doing the motor imitation too.
You want the cup? Yeah, ask me. Ask me. Ask me. Cup, please. All right, there you go. This concept, and whenever I show you a videotape, you have to realize I'm trying to teach you about a concept. And there's many different variations that could occur for different children, okay? But this concept is, child wants something he can vocally imitate. Let's have him ask me, because that's part of the social interaction piece, okay? Now, in the teaching language book, there's a table 5-2. It's a quick transfer procedure for a pure man using sign language. And I'm going to kind of walk you through this quickly. Can't read it so well there. You can read it actually in the book. But the idea here is that when we go to teach somebody to ask for something, let's say we're going to use sign language because the child can't vocally imitate, like little girl Rhiannon, teach her to do this. When we do that, what we want, the bottom line is when she's hungry, we want her to sign eat and get some food. That's what we're trying. That's what we call a pure man. I'm hungry, I ask for something to eat, you give me something to eat, I get reinforced for requesting. Question?
Yeah. Now, would you take precedence over signing for eat as opposed to like the sign for raisin? Do you want to concentrate on just the sign for eat, not that sign for item?
That's a great question, and I think I'll probably go ahead and just deal with it right now.
Okay.
For most kids, when I'm starting out, I will not teach the specific item for the child unless I know in some way that they actually know what that item is, real specifically in some other way. So like perhaps receptively, and they, oh, where's the raisin? They can give me the raisin versus the chips and so on. I need to know that the child already knows these variations, because one of the problems you get into is if you're going to make a mistake, you want to do the least amount of problems. You want to cause the least amount of problems. One of the things that happened very early in my career in working with children was I saw people trying to teach like raisin, because they really, really like raisins, and they really, really like chips, and they really, really like bacon. So they'll try to teach raisin, chips, and bacon when the kid can't even tell you when they're hungry. Okay? They can't tell you when they want to go outside. They can't tell you when they want to jump. They can't tell you when they want to get picked up. They can't tell you what the motivation is. Hunger motivation, activity as a reinforcer, watch something. They can't do that. It'd be like trying to teach the child to ask for Dora the Explorer versus the Wiggles or something like that when they can't even tell you that they want to watch TV. And so that's where it gets tricky. And I know some of my colleagues will say, no, you teach the specific one. And for a number of kids, that works all right. It's when it doesn't work, you're in trouble. Because now you've tried to teach bacon or chip or a raisin, and they're not getting it. They know they have to do something, but they're all messed up because they don't know what they need to do to get something when they're hungry. So what I'll do is I'll teach them like eat. I may teach them something like music, okay, or open or up to get picked up. If they can pick up on those, now you can tell me you want something to eat, then I can probably go in and say, oh, well, which one do you want? Oh, you want want the apple, good, do this, apple, you want apple, so good. They eat, now you offer them a choice, now you can go to the next level. But when they're not even making a distinction between motivational variables, what it is that's motivating them to respond with you at the moment, then it gets really tricky pretty quickly. If it works, great for the other kids. If it happens to hit and it works well, they can do raisin and chip and bacon and all that. Great, no problem. It's when you have a problem. What I find is I'd rather start with, say, I want something to eat. And then later I can teach you, oh, you want banana. But if I start trying to teach banana, now they don't want banana, they want something else, but I don't know what it is they want, and I don't even know that they're hungry, I'm in trouble. And so what I'll do is I'll teach eat first, and that specifically identifies what's motivating them to respond. They're hungry. Then I'll teach them more specifics within that. Okay? But that's why I don't go to that right away for most kids. Unless the kid actually knows it, you know, they go over, they go, oh, well, go get the chips, and they go get the chips. Oh, go get me a banana, and then go get you a banana. Okay, now you know they want the banana. Okay, what do you want? You want the banana? Probably going to be able to, more likely to be able to get it under those conditions. Okay, good question, thank you. Table 5.2 in the teaching language book talks about how we get from how to teach these kids to ask for something to eat spontaneously. But what I can do is, when I'm going to teach them, there's a number of things I can do. I can take a look at the consequences. When the child does this, they obviously have to get something to eat. That's very, very important. So they get the food on. That's the big reinforcement. That's always going to be the case. However, I can also praise them and say, right, eat, oh, eat, yeah, that's it. My change of voice, that can also be a conditioned reinforcer I can throw in perhaps. And also, if they like being tickled or hugged, I can, oh, eat, yeah, eat. You know, again, I don't use a lot of the physical type of reinforcers typically. Usually I'll just use my tone of voice and I'll deliver the actual reinforcer. But you could do anything that works for the child, okay, to strengthen that behavior. But the specific reinforcement is getting the food item. All this is just extra. Now, here's where the real component of teaching comes in, and that is, what does it take to get the child to engage in this behavior? Okay? Obviously, they're not doing it right now because that's why we're trying to teach them to do that. But antecedently, before they say eat, or sign eat rather, I can, again, I have to wait till they're hungry because there's no reason to sign eat if they're not hungry. So that always has to be in place. The motivation, they have to be hungry. Then I can say, what do you want, which is a verbal stimulus to respond. I can have the food item. I can hold the food item right up in front of them so they actually see it. Okay, that can be another variable I can control. And that's the nonverbal stimulus. I can say sign eat, which is an intraverbal stimulus for them to do this. Okay. I can also use the sign for eat. I can give an imitative stimulus. I can do this. Those are some of the variables I can. And last but not least, I can physically prompt them to do it. I can guide their hands. That's the last one. So all of these are things I can use to get them to sign eat. Now, obviously, the only one I really want is for them to be hungry and them to sign eat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use whatever it takes to get them to do it. But I'm not going to use anything I don't have to use. So in other words, if I don't have to say, what do you want? I don't need to say that. I'm going to say, eat, eat. Like you noticed with the little girl I was teaching to sign eat, I was not sitting there going, oh, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? I wasn't doing that. Okay? So again, I'm only going to use whatever I need to get it to happen. With the end, what I want is when child's hungry, they do this, get some food. That's my bottom line, okay? So how do we fade the prompts? Well, the first thing we want to get rid of, if we're going to do that, is get rid of the physical prompts. That's what this dashed line represents. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to take their hand and put them to do this for eat. One of the first things I want to do is start getting my hands off. So if I can get them to, if I do like this, and they go this far, then I'm going to try to get them here and see if they'll go that far. And eventually, I might just kind of do this, and they do the rest of it till they can do it on their own. So I'm going to fade the physical prompts. That's the first thing I got to get out of there. And I got to tell you, one of the teaching errors that a lot of people make is because they're so used to systematic instruction, they say, well, we're going to use a physical prompt for 3 days in a row till they do it with everybody. So, okay, so now they're doing it for everybody's doing it 3 days in a row across all people. We meet on Wednesday at our meeting, and they say, okay, now we're going to go to a partial physical prompt about 3 inches away. We're going to do that till the kids do it. A lot of times, we can make the kids totally prompt dependent by using the prompts over and over and over like that. We want to get rid of the prompts in a matter of seconds or minutes if we can. So I just share that with you those of you who are used to very systematic instruction, again, remember what our goal is. Our goal is to get them to do this, okay? So if we have to use a physical prompt, I want to get rid of it as fast as I can. And many times I'll get rid of it within about 5 minutes or less, and the kid's doing the response for me. But again, if you start doing over and over and over again across people, across days, the kids can just wait for you to do it. And so, well, the kid's prompt dependent. And I'll tell you, we made them prompt dependent because that's what they expect, because that's how we taught them, okay? If we teach them that we're going to get rid of our prompts quickly, their behavior will adjust to that if, in fact, we do have a reinforcer for them, okay? So anyhow, get rid of the physical prompts as quickly as possible. I can also do the same thing with the imitative stimulus. So instead of me doing this the whole way, I say, oh, you want to eat? I'm like, you want to eat? As opposed to, you want to eat? I can start fading my imitative prompt too. I can do the same thing with sign eat. I go, eat, 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 eat. And they can do it. So again, I can not tell them the whole word. I can also get rid of the food item. Now that they're doing this to get something to eat, and I've got something for them to eat, don't have to hold it in front of my face all the time. Again, they're used to it. They know they're getting it. So now they're signing eat. They get something to eat, and it's been up here, and I can hold it down here. They do it down here. They still get it pretty soon. I put it back here. They just saw it a second ago. And now they might still sign eat, and I pull it out and give it to them. Again, what we're trying to do is make it so they don't have to see the thing that they're asking for. But this we do slowly over time. Because imagine in your world, if you wanted to ask for something, but you had to see it before you could ask for it, there'd probably be a whole lot of things in life you wouldn't get access to. So we're trying to teach them that just because you don't see it doesn't mean you can't ask for it. When you're hungry, you can do this, and people start, oh, you want something to eat, and find something for you, okay? So the nonverbal stimulus food, I can also get rid of what do you want, and typically I don't use that too much. Oh, what do you want? You want to eat? I might do that a couple of times and then just get rid of it, because you don't need that. Now, if a kid's going around the house and it's very clear that something's wrong, sometimes you're going to ask, well, what do you want? Oh, you want to eat. Okay, so it might serve as a prompt for them to request under those conditions, the natural environment. So we don't necessarily don't want to use it. We want to use it occasionally, but not all the time. If I know what you want, I don't keep saying, what do you want, what do you want, what do you want, what do you want? It's extra, right? I know what you want. You just tell me eat and you get what you want. Okay, so anyhow, if you have a child who is vocally imitative, in other words, like that little girl who could repeat anything you said, then you don't have to sit there and screw around with sign language. You can just go right to the vocal imitation, like I showed you. We go to Chucky's, wants Chucky, say Chucky, Chucky, good, Chucky. So this is what this demonstrates in 5.3. Again, it's a lot simpler because we don't have the sign language in there. Basically, it's a vocal imitative prompt. We fade the vocal imitative prompt, and she learns to ask for what she wants, okay? Here's where we get into trouble. People picking the first request. As the question came earlier, and that is, what about this? What about that? And I have a lot of times people will come in and they'll say, okay, well, I tried this and it didn't work. Sign language failed. Vocal imitation requesting failed. Now, kid must not be very smart. And they go, okay, well, first of all, go back. Subject is always right. That's where we always start. The kids learn what we teach them. And sometimes we're not very effective in our teaching. We make mistakes. We all make mistakes. I've made mistakes. I'm sure you've made mistakes. Okay? But what we got to do is learn from that. How do kids learn? Well, the first thing is, a lot of times people are trying to get kids to ask for things that they don't want. Think about it. One of my staff came to me one day and said, well, I'm supposed to be getting him to ask for these different things, but he doesn't want it. So how do I get him to want it? He's not asking for it. What am I supposed to do? And I said, well, first of all, how would you get me to ask for something that I don't want? First of all, you got to get me to want it, right? Okay. Now, one of my examples that I use for this is I say, how many of you were thinking that you wanted some artistic charcoal? And of course, everybody's throwing artistic charcoal. Why would I want that? But then if I said I could make you want artistic charcoal, I could get you to ask me for artistic charcoal. How would I do that? I say, well, I'll offer you $1 million for a stick figure drawing of a cat drawn with artistic charcoal. Oh, can I get some artistic charcoal? Where's some artistic charcoal? Because first you could go around, look in the bottoms of your purses. Guys go out in the car, see if there's some in the trunk or something like that. In our technological world, you could go on your phone and search, you know, for artistic supply stores, you know, where's the nearest artist supply store, so you could find it. You might, if it were a school environment, you say, well, where's the art classroom, so I could go find. So you might engage in a whole range of behavior, some of which might be nonverbal, meaning you just go out and search for it, and others might be verbal. Well, where can I get some charcoal? Okay, call up. Do you have any artistic charcoal in stock today? Yeah. It's because, again, the motivation is now there for you to ask for charcoal. But, you know, 5 minutes ago, it wouldn't have been there. And see, this is where you've got to create a motivational condition to get the kids to ask for things. You can't just say, well, they're not asking for it, they don't want it. Okay, if you want them to learn how to ask for things, you got to show them that, you know, something's of value at the moment. So you have to have actual reinforcers, is what I'm trying to say. The other part is, do you control access to it? You know, if a kid likes to hear a certain type of sound, they like that pattern, they can give it to themselves for free. Is that something you control, that it only comes from you, or can they get it on their own? So a lot of reinforcers they get access to without us. So we don't control it, so we probably can't teach them to ask for that. Okay, we could, but we'd have to set it up slightly differently. Something that's easy for us to deliver. All of a sudden the kid starts asking for a vanilla milkshake and it's 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, McDonald's is closed, you can't get it. Or you gotta wait till morning, or you gotta drive through the snow to get there to deliver it, even though it was open right now. That's too hard. So in other words, you want to have something that's easy to deliver at the moment. You can deliver multiple times, like in the little girl signing eat, or the little guy asking for juice. He could do it over and over and over again because I gave him a little bit so he didn't satiate, he didn't get tired of it or all filled up on it, so he still wanted more, okay? Deliver multiple times. And something that they often want. Again, it's not just something that happens at this moment I want to teach. I want to teach them to ask for something that they can use on a daily basis, not just at this one time, okay? Like go down the slide, a specific water slide or something like a water world type of a place, when in fact they're not going to be able to have access to that every day. Let's pick some real common type of things that they ask for or want on a regular basis, or could ask for on a regular basis. In the book, Teaching Language to Children with Autism, there's a number of different descriptors that help you through in Chapter 5 about how to pick the first requests or demands for a child. And again, you'll start taking a look at some of the ones I just went over you. Take a look at things that are easy to control, you have available around you. Consumable things like food and drinks. These are what we call primary reinforcers or unlearned reinforcers. These are things you need for survival. Most kids find something, eat or drink serves as a reinforcer for most kids, almost every child. So we often think along those lines. We also think of things that have short duration of contact. Bubbles and tickles. You blow the bubbles pop. You tickle, you can easily stop tickling them. So again, you can turn it on and off, or they go away quickly on their own. If you have to use something that you have to remove, you get into some different levels of complexity here. So I tell people, be very careful about that. You don't want to be taking things away from kids. You want to be delivering things to kids. So you always think of, is there a way in which I can deliver something that I don't have to take away? If you give a child, for instance, a music player that they're playing on their own, and then you want to try to take it away, that's a lot more difficult than just singing to the child, because you can just stop singing, okay? You can remove it a little easier that way. It's just your behavior. But if you are going to use something you have to take away, think of how you can do it in the most efficient way possible. I like to use the stop and go on the remote control switch for DVD players or music players, because I can turn it on and off without having to physically pull it away from the child. Something that's easy to deliver, books, cars, dolls, things that you have available as opposed to milkshakes at a drive-in or something like that. Can be delivered on multiple occasions, like small candies, sips of juice, raisins that you give out 1 or 2 at a time, so forth. So again, they don't fill up. If you give them a bowl of ice cream, for instance, then you're stuck. Okay, you can't get multiple responses. However, if you keep the spoon and you give them bites of ice cream, then you can get multiple responses. So you always think of, how can I get multiple responses within a session? And something that always seems strong, and although people often say, well, you probably don't want to use what they call stim toys, the things that the child, you know, kind of wants to do over and over again, those can be very powerful reinforcers, things that they want all the time. One little boy that I work with, he really likes to see things fall. And so what we can do is let him see things fall, but we can take one of these little tube type of things that has objects in it that kind of hit little barriers on the way down and kind of fall down through and make funny noises, you know, like the rain toys that you get at the the store. Same thing, you turn it over, he gets to watch it all fall down. Great, I can flip it over whenever I want. I can deliver the reinforcer. Again, even though it may be a STEM type of toy, okay? We have to talk about what STEM really means, but the notion is if they really like something, we can use that as a reinforcer too. The other thing, when you start thinking about it, is you want to select words that are already familiar to the child as demonstrated by an existing receptive, echoic, or imitative skill. So for instance, if a child really likes books and they know what books are receptively, or they can say book, or they can do this, the sign for book, we might consider picking that one first because they have some familiarity with that item, okay, in a different language type sense. Also, we want to make sure that if the child's working on the vocal, that we pick sounds or words that they can make, if at all possible. They go, buh, buh, that's good. We might be able to use that for the sign for book as we're starting to work on our e. We might be able to teach that along with the sign for eat and so forth. So you start with easier sounds. You don't pick sounds that they can't make if you're going to be doing it with the vocal man. Same thing for signing. Pick what they can do. You know, in other words, if they can't do the sign for music, which is kind of like this, maybe they can do this, and that's okay. It's an approximation. So we might use an approximation for the actual sign. It's not like we're trying to teach the child sign language to interact with the deaf community. We're just trying to get this child who interacts with this very small group of people around to be able to ask the people that they interact with for things that they want, so people know what their motivation is from moment to moment. The advantage of sign language is some of the signs also have an iconic nature to them. That is, they look like what you do when you're doing the behavior. So eat kind of looks like eat because you're putting food. Book kind of looks like you're reading a book you're holding. Now, of course, you can't have anything that looks like music, can you? Because that's an auditory stimulus and they got a visual stimulus, so there's no way they're going to match. So some of these are arbitrarily selected. But the bottom line is we teach those things as best we can using the iconic features. Ball kind of looks like ball, and so on. We can use that to our advantage. Also, we want to make sure that we're using the same words for these things. So if someone's saying drink and another person's saying juice and another one's saying sippy, you know, or something like that for the same thing, we want to use the same thing all across the board so we don't confuse the child. Okay? So it's very important that we all agree we're going to talk about drink or we're going to talk about juice or whatever it is. We're going to pick a word, we're going to stick with it so that everybody's on the same page. We don't want to confuse the kid. One of the most important elements of teaching children to ask for things is to make sure that we're tapping different motivational conditions. Specifically, we don't want to teach all food items because what if they're not hungry? Then we don't have any way of trying to motivate the child to participate with us. But what we want to do is make sure that we have something that they can consume, so maybe something to eat, maybe something for drink, maybe something to have physical play, like being pushed on a swing or spinning around on a spin type of toy, some kind of physical stimulation, maybe some visual stimulation, like maybe watching a movie or something like that, or possibly something that involves some auditory stimulation, like music or so forth. So we want to tap different motivational conditions, not just hunger issues, okay, not just consumatory types of requests. It's very, very important because when they're not hungry, we still want to be able to motivate them using other things like jumping on a trampoline or so on. Another problem that people get into, a big problem, oftentimes, is they'll try to teach eat and drink together. And what the child does is they do something like this. And, oh yeah, they want something to drink. So I've got a cup here, and the kid does this, and they give them, oh, you want something to drink. And then I've got a food item there, and they do the same thing. Oh, you want something to eat. And the kid gets really confused. And then we wonder why they can't, why are they making all these mistakes? It's our fault. Our fault. Now what we can do to clean that up if you run into that. Anybody run into that problem? Yeah. It's not uncommon. What I'll do is I'll put all the things to eat over here and I'll put all the things to drink over there. The child's walking over here and I'll know that they want something to eat, so I can start prompting them, oh, eat, eat. They're walking over here, oh, you want something to drink. But I wouldn't use the sign eat and drink together for most kids to start with. I'll teach eat, I'll teach drink later, okay? Simply because it gets too confusing for kids. Both of them, when you stop to think about it, result in a consumatory type of reinforcer. You have to drink something that kind of fills you up, you eat, it kind of fills you up. So you may do this and you may get something, but you get juice, which gives you some nourishment anyhow. You may have been hungry and you wanted something to eat, but you'll take the juice. It also makes you feel good. So it can get very, very confusing. So don't teach eat and drink together for most kids, okay? Just keep them separate. Teach something else. That's why with that little girl I was showing you, instead of doing drink, we were doing this, like you would shake a bottle or something. Okay, because it's entirely different. So other kids will teach them to do this, like they're holding their bottle, because little kids will hold their bottle like that. So we'll teach them a different response than the drink, the normal drink type sign. You got to teach the kids to ask for things they want. People kind of screw this up sometimes because what they do is they try to teach the kids to ask for things they want the kids to ask for. They want the kids to ask to go to bed because they want their kids to go to sleep. They want the kids to ask to go to the toilet because they want the kids to toilet train. Well, the kid, quite frankly, doesn't want to go to sleep because it's more fun to stay up. And they don't care about peeing in their diaper because they're so absorbent anyhow nowadays that it doesn't make any difference to them. So why should they ask to go to the toilet or go to bed? These are not things they want. When you teach a child to request, remember you're teaching them to request things that they want, okay? Number one. So don't teach them to ask for bed or things that they want, that you want them to want. That's not where you start. Later on we might work on it. Also, I don't teach kids no. A lot of people say, oh, well, teach them yes and no, because once they do that, then you've unlocked all the mysteries behind what it is they're thinking about. Because you can say, oh, do you want this? Do you want that? And yes and no. The problem is, when you're working with children, especially young children, you want them to work for you. You want them to want to work for you. And if all of a sudden we're trying to do something and all of a sudden they're going no, they don't want to do it, it's kind of working against us trying to teach them to do it. Now again, that's a problem if they're saying no, they don't want to do it. Their behavior kind of tells you anyhow. So that means we've got a low motivational condition that we're approaching the child with. So what we've got to do is take a look at that and address it. But I don't teach no right away for children. It's too complex. And as I'll talk about later, no can be for, you know, is this a cup? Yes or no is different from do you want the cup? Yes or no. And is a cup used something that we use to play hockey with? Yes or no. That'd be an interverbal yes, no. That's different than a mand or a request yes, no, which is different than call attack or expressive label yes. Those are all different concepts. Yes, no is not a simple concept is what I'm trying to say. It depends upon the condition. So I don't teach no. But the other more important one is many people who think they know what they're doing with teaching science to kids make a big mistake by teaching the kids more and please or want, okay? Because the problem is the person who's doing the teaching gets reinforced very, very quickly oftentimes because they teach the child to do this, so the child does this, and oh, look, they're doing it more. Oh, good, and then they give them something to eat. Oh, look, they're doing it again. Look, they're doing it spontaneously. So the kid's going around like this as long as you're passing out the goodies to them. And then you go over to another situation where we got the drinks and you give them sips of juice and how to go on this and they get the juice. All they know is they just got to do this and life is good, okay? But they're not learning how to specifically ask for something. So if you're walking down the hall with the kid and all of a sudden the kid's doing this, you have no clue. Are they hungry? Do they want to listen to music? They want to eat? What's the motivational variable? So teaching more or please, which is the exact same thing, they're doing something to get you to kind of keep on going what you're doing, okay? The problem is, if you've got a child who's doing that, they probably don't understand that more is like a quantity of something and you're actually getting more of something. That's probably way over their head, okay? All they know is they just have to do this or this if they're going to keep this good stuff coming. And so then people say, well, I don't get it, you know, because this is a good thing. They got it right away and they're doing it spontaneously and we want spontaneous requests. I said, yeah, but we don't know what they want most of the time. All they know is under a certain context, it just keeps on flowing. It's just like, keep it coming, keep it coming, keep it coming, keep it coming, keep it coming. That's all it really is. Okay? They can't tell you what they want. Okay? So I like to say, if you're going more and more and more, they probably don't want Billy Idol to be listening to, you know, this Rebel Yell or something like that, right? Or the White Wedding, you know. That's not what they're asking for. But you don't know what they're asking for, so don't teach those. Now, how do we record data on this? This is a simple data sheet that I've got here. I use this for a lot of different things. You can write all kinds of stuff. You can use this for many different types of training. What I'll often do for parents is I will have a data sheet here where I'll put, like, this is a child that I worked with where he taught him the sign for eat or food. We called it food, but eat was the same thing. Milk, he liked milk, so we taught him milk. We didn't teach him drink, we taught him milk. You know, the sign for squeezing the udders of a cow. And video, he liked to watch videos. Also, he liked puzzles, so we taught him to do this for puzzle. Okay, and bed, I said, well, why would you teach bed? Well, we did this because he couldn't do this for jump. But he liked to jump on the bed, so he asked this, and he got to go up on the bed and jump, okay? So it was really a request for jumping, but we used a sign for bed. And then what I did is I show the parents every day, and this is my sample to them, you can put a hash mark when the child does the sign with minimal physical prompt. So let's say we're going to do the eat sign, and I do this, and the child does this, hash mark. Okay? Because now the child did something. I'm recording what the child's doing, not what I'm doing. I will still be working. If I got to do the full physical prompts, I'm not going to bother to write that down because I'm doing all the work. However, if the child starts to do it on their own, that's when I'm going to put a hash mark because they're engaging in a behavior. I'm trying to track their behavior change, not my behavior. A lot of the data collection systems that are set up is to make sure that people are actually implementing programs. So they're putting down all the responses that they're getting from the child, correct and incorrect, because we want to make sure they're running enough trials. What I'm interested in is not so much what we're doing, but what the child is doing. So I'll put a hash mark every time the child does it with a minimal physical prompt. So that's what these represent, these ones here. If the child does it without a physical prompt, but does it with an imitative prompt, I do this and the child does this, I'll put a plus mark, okay? And so now I got some pluses in here because occasionally the child's going to do it with me just doing, oh, you want to eat? Eat, sign, eat, good. When they sign, eat, I get a plus. And then I can put an S for if the child comes up and just starts doing it on his own, okay? Without an imitative prompt, without a physical prompt, I can put an S, and so you'll start to see these start to happen too. And I'll put a W for a word or approximation. The child goes, eat? Oh, yeah, okay, good. Then I'll put a W, because now not only are they spontaneously do it, but they're also giving me a vocal with it too. And what you'll see with this child here, over the course of about 2.5 weeks, it went from very little that he was doing on his own, okay, with minimal physical prompts or imitative or otherwise, and then eventually you'll see that he starts getting the idea, oh, this works, I can ask for something to eat, and you see a lot of spontaneous ones starting to happen here, and more that are happening just with an imitative prompt. So you can actually measure how fast it's happening. I like to take these and put these up on people's refrigerators, because the kitchen is pretty much the center of the house for most family activities. You plop it up on the refrigerator, you have the parents marking when the child's doing it, makes it real convenient. You know, you don't have to go turn to a data binder and flip through to say, oh, where's that page? Put it up on the refrigerator, make it easy. Lower the response effort, that's what we call them behavioral terms. Make it easy. And then just have people record as it happens, okay? So anyhow, that's how you record data on the MANS. There are other types of verbal behavior that we need to teach these children also, and one is the TACT, or the expressive labels, you call it in English. And this is very important because you need to have a basic core vocabulary. Kids need to know what things are that people are talking about around them. So they need to learn how to expressively label these items too. And it's amazing to me how difficult that can be for some of these kids to learn new words for items that are commonly found, or attributes of items. This is what we have to spend a lot of time teaching. Now, quite frankly, when a lot of people start working with children with autism and they know they have a language delay, they'll often jump right into this TACT repertoire, teaching them the names for things. And that's a wonderful thing, because if they hear this word, say it's a chair, and then they know it's a chair, they can say it's a chair, and also say go sit in the chair, then receptively they're probably likely to go sit in the chair and so forth. But so there's a lot of connections that go on when you start teaching. Many times people teach this almost exclusively though. So you got the kid that has 300 or 400 words but never uses them, and then it comes back to the, well, why should they, like we talked about earlier. But what I want to talk with you about now is just that, labeling items. And I want to show you a tape. It's an older tape with me when I was working with a child using discrete trial training, as they call it, which is nothing more than, what is it? And if they don't know, you tell them cup, and they say cup. They say, good job, that's right, it's a cup. What is it? It's a, they go cup. That little sequence where I go back to the original question, what is it? After I had told them, they repeated it, and now I come back, what is it? And then they tell me again, is a very, very important step. It's what we call a transfer trial, okay? A lot of times people say, oh, what is it? The kid doesn't know, so they say cup. The kid says cup, and then they go on to the next thing. Oh, what is it? Kid doesn't know, so they say pen. Kid says pen, they go on to the next thing. They never have to come back and answer the original question. So what you're going to see in this video that I'm going to show you is how I actually taught this kid to start labeling some items. Now the story behind this child was, I was called to go into his home because he was having some behavior problems. He was climbing up staircases and running out in the backyard, and they were afraid he was going to get away or fall off the banister and get hurt. So they had me come in for behavioral issues. The school was also having problems with him because what was happening was he'd go into circle time and they'd start talking about the weather and the days of the week and what was going to be happening, and he'd start acting up and he'd end up going down to timeout. Take him out of the room, down to timeout. Well, it turns out that the data were showing that he was actually going to timeout more frequently now. And so basically what it was escape behavior, because they were talking about concepts that he couldn't talk about. Talking about the weather. Well, he didn't know what a cloud was, didn't know what the sun was, didn't know what warm was or hot was or rainy was. And so the best thing for him to do was to get the heck out of there. And so what he did was he started acting up and go down to timeout. They didn't realize that he had a defective tact repertoire, meaning he couldn't expressively label all these different things that they were talking about, let alone an intraverbal repertoire to be able to talk about. He couldn't